See Homestead, how the heck are you today? Let me adjust this camera a bit. Okay, happy Monday, folks. Yeah, made it through the weekend, hopefully. All right, didn't get too much trouble, right? Um, Today we're going to teach you a little something about what's a CAFO. I bet a few of you could raise your hand and go, I know what that is. You don't. So we're going to bring you up to speed on that. And a few other items. We're getting ready to kick off a playlist that is going to be something similar to the GMO series, except for this is just basically going to be what's wrong with our modern big ag food chain, what problems are out there, and start looking at the different reasons and so forth. And this barn chat's going to cover one of them. Will actually be part one to the series. So we'll stand by and we'll get started here. Need to invest in a good microphone. I can hook up something here instead of having to drag this thing closer. Anyway, yes, I'm going to start a new series on what's wrong with our with the big ag food chain, and just kind of look at that as an entire series covering everything from poultry and beef and so on, so forth. Today, if you don't know what it is, we're going to teach you what a CAFO is. And we're going to point out a couple of important numbers. And those numbers are 5.0, write them down, and 6.8. And I'll explain to you why that means something to you. And it means something pretty important. Okay? So this series I'm going to start up is going to look at all the sort of things in the big ag chain and what the problems are. We're going to cover things even down to, the new certified natural foods. It's kind of a program for the smaller operators who can't afford to go through all the hoops and bells and whistles to get USDA certification as organic. Which is another route you might be able to go to get yourself some good quality food at a little lower pricing. But let's start off with those two magic numbers. 5.0 and 6.8, those are actually pH levels for cattle. Yeah. What their rumen is like a big fermentation vat. And it is designed, and naturally a cow has a neutral non-acid rumen of 6.8 pH level, and it is a very it's where a cattle's stomach needs to be at, okay, for several reasons. Cattle and so forth have bacteria and microbes in them just like we do. Some of them not necessarily so good for us, all right, but you don't want passed along. This is important in things like raw milk. The FDA has heart attacks about how dangerous raw milk is. Well, yeah. If you have the wrong pH level in your cattle, yeah, it can be dangerous for humans. All right. But 6.8 is neutral, non-acid rumen, and bacteria and microorganisms develop and survive in that rumen. Just like we have microbes and pathogens in us, so do any animal that has rumen. All animals have it. Okay. So cattle are designed to have a neutral rumen, no acid. Now here's what's happened over the years, folks. And all of a sudden you're going to begin to go, whoa, wait a minute, I understand now about the graining up of cattle. Okay? Start feeding cattle a lot of grain and feed. All right? You're messing with the pH of that rumen. Corn, grains, and so forth, and feeds increase the acid level in cattle's rumen. Matter of fact, it can get it up to the point that the cow is literally sick from too much acid. If cattle are let go with a high with a high acid level in their rumens for an extended period of time, they come up with a disease that they call acidosis or something of that nature, pretty close to that. And that will actually cause their stomachs their rumens to start producing acid, and the acid level gets up as high as 200 times normal. 200 times normal. That's from some cattle being on grain too much. All right. Back at the turn of the century, when they moved dairy cattle into the cities and took them off pastures and put them on grain, here again at the suggestion of your government, they found that these cattle got sick. The quality of the milk was horrible, to the point of them having to add chalk to it just to make it white again. And they also found out that the bacteria and so forth that was growing and the microorganisms that were growing inside that rumen now are surviving and thriving in a high acid environment. Up to that point, with a cattle with a neutral, non-acid rumen, these microbes and so forth develop in this non-acid environment. So then you take that same microbe and swallow it down as a human being. That microbe that was born and raised and thrived in a non-acid environment now just got dumped into your high acid stomach. And it's now dead. Okay? Boom. Gone. Wonder why we didn't have a lot of problems drinking raw milk since the pyramids were being built and before. There you go. Cattle ate grass. Grain was hard to grow, expensive to process, and therefore was not fed to animals. It was kept for human beings and their consumption. Cattle ate grass. Guess what? That's what cattle are supposed to eat. That's simple. It keeps their pH at 6.8 in their rumens, which is a neutral, non-acid environment. Increase the amount of feed, you increase the acid in the rumen, and this applies to goats. It applies to any rumen animal. It will, the pH levels change a little bit in some species, but for the most part, these are fermentation vats. They are not stomachs. They're not like us with acid stomachs. All right, and they're not designed to be. Careful on the feed. All right, watch the grains. So we end up with sick cattle. All right. Now, what's a CAFO? Because they're going to be very important to the quality of the product that you put on your table at home. Because that is where the bulk of your meat comes from. Okay? Basically, what a CAFO is a concentrated animal feeding operation. A feedlot. Call them CAFOs. All right? And I've heard people say, yeah, it looks terrible. They're out there standing in all that mud. Folks, that ain't mud. That's manure. Okay? A lot of times they're up well over their ankles in manure and deeper, depending on how clean the operation is. Unhealthy environment. But, son of a gun, they grow faster and, put on the weight faster, and it's less time from steer bought out of auction to delivery to the processor. And that is all they're worried about. All right? It's a feedlot. One of the most inhumane things you'd ever want to go look at. Okay? Now, there are some operators who try to run fairly clean operations. But the fact of the matter is, CAFOs are not good. All right? Same thing. A lot of grain going into those animals. A lot of grain. The possibility of having acidosis, things of this nature, because of the high grain feed that they're on, you have sick cows. And so you're buying meat off of probably not such great conditioned animals. All right? You're buying meat that has a lot of fat and not the good kind. All right? So when you look at the the fatty acids and so forth, the difference between a feedlot operation and a grass-fed operation is like day and night. One meat is not healthy. The other meat is healthy. One meat doesn't have much in vitamins. The other meat has loaded with vitamins. All right? Mother Nature does it right. She knows what she's doing out there. We keep thinking we're going to improve on that. That's the U.S. saying, oh, this is the way to do it. Okay? And yeah, if you take a steer and throw it on a feedlot, and you take a steer and throw it in a pasture, that steer in that feedlot's going to be up to butchering weight much faster than that steer out there in the pasture. Is that steer out there in the pasture having to be shot in the butt with antibiotics because it's standing up to its knees in manure? No. Okay? Is it a chance that that cow standing out in that pasture is going to be a sickly son of a gun because of what it's being fed? No. All these things go along with this USDA's recommended feedlot programs. So that's what a CAFO is. That is what goes on with your meat. All right? Natural is better. The closer to nature you can get it. Now, I'm not saying never give a cow any feed whatsoever. It's like saying never give a kid a donut, which aren't good for them, or give them a piece of candy, which is not good for them. But it's also, especially in cattle, if you need to bring them up and get them standing in one spot to where you can take a look at their body condition, you can take a look and see if they have any injuries, you can see their overall condition, a little feed now and again is necessary to bring them in and get them standing there at a trough so that you can check those animals out. It's also helpful to help train them to come into a corral. Okay? I've talked about that before. So feed has its purpose. But if you're going to feed them, you want to try to hold down the amount of corn in it, because corn is really rough on their rumen. And you want an organic product. You don't need the herbicides and the GMO product on top of everything else. And be very limited on the amount of feed you throw at these animals. Right? They do well on grass and weeds and shrubs and tree leaves, and they do well. Okay? If they don't, you need to get them the heck out of your herd and build your genetics based on the ones that do well, eating just natural grasses. Okay? And make sure when you're buying meat from a farmer, from like a CSA or something like that, go look at their operation. Are these, is he having to fertilize his fields, or is he doing pasture management to build his soil and to keep his grass in good condition? If they're doing pasture management, that's what you want. If they're doing a lot of fertilization of fields, that's what you don't want. It's still chemicals, folks. It's potassiums and things of this nature. You don't want the chemicals in your meat. And whatever they put on that field, the ammonium nitrate or whatever, comes up in that grass in its chemical form, and that cow eats it. It is much better to have an established pasture that is drawing those nutrients through the soil the way nature intended it to. The grass is healthier, the animal's healthier. All right? That's what a CAFO is. All right? Kind of burn that one in the back of your mind. It's a feedlot, All right, and it's a fancy term for it, concentrated animal feeding operation. And they concentrate the animals in a very small area. They give them a massive amount of silage and grain, and they try to fatten them up as quick as they can. And those poor animals are standing out there in manure. They get sick. A lot of them even die. It's that bad of an environment. Now, here again, I do know some fellows that run feedlots that do everything they can do to try to keep it as clean as possible, but it's the nature of the animal that makes it tough. Okay, to run a profitable feedlot, you know, those cattle are not living in the best of conditions. So, this is going to be the beginning of it. I'm going to start going through, even discussing things of why you'd want to go with heritage breeds on your homestead instead of standards. We're going to discuss things like dairy cattle. Some of the problems that modern dairies are just now really getting into with Holstein cattle. It's been overbred. The genetics are all screwed up in that cow. And they're starting to have problems because of it. Okay? And the quality of milk is not. A Holstein is designed and has been engineered, you might say, to produce large volumes of store milk. Okay? Then you get into like the Jerseys and things of this nature, and those cattle are designed to produce less amount of milk, but it's a much higher quality milk. A lot more butter fats and things of this nature are in that cow's milk. And they're not been the breed itself, because that's what that breed was for, has not been monkeyed with as much as like the Holsteins. They're getting to the point now to where they're having actual breeding issues because of the overrunning of the genetics. So I've got a whole list of things to try to bring you up to speed on. We're going to be talking about big ag, dairy, cattle operations, things of this nature, and try to give you a little heads up on some of the things to be watching for. It's going to explain to you in a little more detail what's wrong with the food chain coming out of big ag. All right, so that you're better informed of it's just not the GMOs and it's just not the herbicides. It is a much larger picture that you need to be aware of. This is going to be shot number 1. I'm going to put it all in a playlist. I think I've decided the name of the thing is going to be, let's see here. Yeah, what's wrong with our food chain. Okay, and we're going to discuss some other topics and some of the ways to where it's not certified organic, but it's certified natural. When you're dealing with that kind of a certification, and how to deal with the individual farmers. Okay, so leave some comments down below. See if you think it will be a useful series to you. But that's what I'm planning on putting out here. So this is Rich from Tennessee Homestead. This went a little bit long, but I wanted you to know more coming. We're going to start talking about food, folks, and what's the best way to improve your family's diet and get weaned out of them grocery stores. Hope you have a great week. It's Monday. Mondays are never all that exciting to me, anyway. It's always trying to gear up and get ready for things. But it kicks off to the rest of the week. So, and hopefully that's going to be a good one for you folks. Take care. We'll talk to you later.